So anyway, we're bringing on our final guest, um, and she is with BK Royston Publishing. And as you all know, BK Royston is a friend of the show. And her name is Adrienne Connor, and she has a book called When Out Isn't an Option. And I guess this is the subhead: Marriage Should Be for Keeps. So, Adrienne, thank you for being a guest on the show.
You're welcome.
I like your glasses.
Thank you.
Do you have a copy of your book handy?
I do.
Okay, so if you could show us the cover of your book so we
Okay,
can
this is the
know.
cover right here.
Okay, you got the wedding rings and the cross in there.
Wait a
Went
minute now.
out
When out isn't an
and
option,
option
marriage should be
to
for
be for
keep.
keeps.
Okay, now see, let's just jump right in there because there is somebody who is watching this show and saying, who are you to tell me I need to stay in a marriage where I don't feel respected, where I'm being abused, where I'm not getting what I need? Why should I stay here? And what is your answer to somebody who would ask those questions?
Well, that question has been asked to me, and the name of the book is When Out Isn't an Option. Because believe it or not, people have come to me and they would say, oh, yeah, the name of the book is Out Isn't an Option. And I will politely tell them, no, that's not the title that God gave to me. God says that when out isn't an option. And the reason being is that God gives us an option to get out, right? Because the word option within itself means a right to choose. It's my option to stay in or it's my option to stay out. And so I wrote the book for those that want to choose, not to uh, exit on the ramp, right? A plan B. But if if you want to stay in it, the book will tell you how to stay in it. But yeah, God does give us options.
Yeah, because God doesn't want us to be in abusive relationships.
That,
And adultery is also reasons for and some people stay
And
even
that's
after
Bible
adultery.
right there. People don't realize that, but it
Yeah,
does say
yeah.
that you can leave a marriage for
Adultery.
marital unfaithfulness.
Abandonment is another. If someone
yeah,
abandons you,
yeah.
then you don't have to say stay married to somebody who's not even there.
Yeah.
So
And that's why, once again, that's why I said when it's not an option. But then also my tagline that says marriage should be for keeps. Sometimes it all is not always for keeps, but God would desire that's God's initial plan
Right.
for it to be for keeps. So it should, but sometimes it's not.
But no, you're right. Some people go into marriage for the wrong reasons. Maybe they're going into it because I can make more money if I'm married, or they go in it because they don't want to be lonely, or
Yeah.
they go in it because they don't want that person to go anywhere else. There are so many different reasons.
and
Yeah.
sometimes all their friends are all getting
May not
married.
always be
Like
the best reason, or
That,
maybe they really do love the person, but they haven't taken the time to get to know that person.
yeah. Yeah. All of the above. And I believe that, when somebody gets married, let's face it, nobody get married and walk down the aisle when in the back of their heads they're like, I'm gonna get a divorce, right? Nobody gets married for that reason. And I believe that so many people that heads toward divorce court, they love each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've come to discover that love, a marriage, it's more than just love, right? Love should be, I got a chapter in the book, what's love got to do with it, right? And sometimes we love, but we don't love that First Corinthians 13 type of love. And so, yeah.
Well, it really, before getting married, it really goes back to being equally yoked. And so that's a key thing that a lot of people miss before
Yeah,
they get married. Because, sometimes it's physical attraction or lust or whatever, but
correct.
you really don't have much in common. You're
Yeah,
not going in the same direction. You don't have the same ideas about money. And money is a big part of marriage. How
yeah,
you spend it, how you save it, you know,
of
what are
course.
our do we have some rules for, if one person is doing all the saving and being responsible and paying the bills, and the other person sees their check, it's just, playtime or whatever. That's
Yeah.
not going to work. Not long term, unless somebody is really long suffering, and that's you shouldn't be long suffering like that. So you have to have the same ideas about things, your values. Then when you have children, how are you gonna, raise them? What are your ideas about child rearing? Though I mean those, but money is probably the biggest obstacle challenge that people have
Yeah.
because if you don't marry somebody who has a similar, it doesn't have to be the same, but if one person is totally irresponsible and the other person is trying to be responsible, that is a recipe for disaster. And
Yeah.
having experienced that personally in my first brief marriage, that is hell on earth for the responsible person, which was me.
Hmm.
So you have to have the same ideas. You have to say, so, and if you're a believer, you should be with a believer.
That's right.
It doesn't
I
mean they're
agree.
perfect. They don't have to be perfect, but they have to have a core set of values and beliefs.
And
That's
that's Bible too.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if I can interject there, I'm also like a SYMBIS facilitator. And I don't know if you all ever heard of SYMBIS, but SYMBIS, the acronym for that is Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And so I do coach premarital couples and I give an assessment. And the assessment does that. It will tell you your marriage type. It will tell you, hey, when we get married, what's our responsibilities? What are we going to do? How are we going to bring together blended families? It's a myriad of questions that is asked, and it's a 92% accuracy rate, right? And so that's something really good. And I find that people, we spend so much of money for the wedding, but how much of
Yes.
time do we really invest on learning how to be married, right? Because
Right.
because the wedding is meant to be a one-time event, but the
Right.
wedding is meant to be a lifetime event.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's,
so we
it's,
need to invest and
it's
learn how to be married.
a lot of people put all their energy into the wedding and
Yeah,
none into planning the marriage and the life together. My
yes.
daughter is getting married soon on June 14th.
Oh wow.
And he's a very nice young man. He's a believer. I really like that he came to our home and asked us for her hand. He really went old school,
Yeah.
and he was sincere. And they make a good couple. So
Good. Congratulations.
yeah, and you want your daughters. I don't have any sons, so I have one child as a daughter. You want your daughter to marry somebody that loves her. Really,
That's
that's really
yeah,
very important. And loves God.
that's
Loves
right.
God first, because if he loves God, there's some things he's not going to do.
Correct.
There's a certain way that he operates, and so and that loves your daughter, because a man being with somebody that doesn't love you or doesn't know what love is or whatever, that's a miserable existence. Um,
Recipe for disaster.
it is. It really is. So what are some of the chapters in your book in terms of subject matter? Like what do you cover in your book?
Well, I tell you, one of my favorite chapters that I have in my book is called "This Is Gonna Get Ugly."
Oh, is that the name of the chapter?
No, yeah, that's the actual name
Oh,
of it.
okay.
And this is going to get ugly because I believe that when people get married, we believe that we're going to always stay in that honeymoon stage, and marriages and relationships don't just stay in a honeymoon stage, right? It weaves in and out of different stages, and so a lot of times we don't like to say the quiet part out loud, right? And the quiet part can be, okay, I want all the good without none of the bad. I want the ups, but I don't want the downs. I want the pretty, but I don't want none of the ugly, right? And so what do you do when ugly shows up, right? What do you do? How do you pivot from that place? Do you pivot at all? Do you just stay in a power struggle stage and allow your relationship to die in that stage? And so that particular chapter, it tells you what do I do when my relationship is in the ugly phase, right? And so that's one of the chapters, and that will bring me to another chapter that I have that's called hard work. Okay, hard work. And so I don't know if you guys ever saw an old commercial with Dwayne Wade, right? It's a Gatorade commercial. And in that particular commercial, it shows how, that they're waking up before the sun comes up in the morning, and they have the screen on the scoreboard there saying winning is. And they say hard work, and so when they're waking up in the
Hey,
morning,
my favorite. That's my favorite cadence when I was in the army.
yeah, yeah, hard
That
work,
hard
and
work.
and and,
Yeah,
and they're
that was my
singing
favorite
it,
cadence.
and they're saying work, hard work, and it showed them, they're waking up before everybody else wake up. They're doing exercises, they're doing push-ups and sit-ups and all of these things because they know that if I'm going to excel in the sport that I love the most, I got to put in some hard work, right? And so that goes to say without, if it's a career, if it's a marriage, what have you, we got to be willing to put in that hard work because it don't come easy. And, we've all heard the song, it takes two to make a thing go right, right? And so we both got to put in that hard work for it to go well, because winning is hard work. And so that's a few of the chapters that I have in the book.
Okay. Now, what do you say to people who talk about a marriage? It should be 50-50.
Oh no, 50-50. I don't know where that myth ever came. I think, and that's in my book. Actually,
Okay.
that's in my book because 50-50, yes, it equals 100, but if I'm just putting in 50, that means that what's happening, what is going wrong by me holding back on that 50, right? And so I believe that marriages and relationships, they're not 50-50. They are 100-100. So I think that that's a myth to say 50-50, honestly speaking.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'd say both people should be putting in 100.
That's right.
You can't be sitting there measuring, well, did I do more than he did, or did he do more than I did? And you're right, there's different stages in marriage. And you start off, in the honeymoon phase or whatever. And then once you have children, then you got to raise them, and that's a lot of years, depending on how many children you have.
Correct.
That's a lot of years that you have to divide your attention, so to speak. I mean, you have to, make sure that everyone's taken care of. But
That's
your spouse should still come first.
yes.
And nowadays we have a lot of blended families.
Yeah, we do.
That can be a challenge for people.
Yes, absolutely correct. Yeah.
So, what led you to focus on marriage as a topic?
Well, in May, in a few months, in May, I will be married for 35 years. And so that was my initial inspiration because of the complexities and the difficulties of marriage, right? And especially today, I believe that the institution of marriage is under severe attack, right? And so that's something that had me to start focusing in on marriages. And a lot of times, just like, we want to return on the marriage, but sometimes we're not putting in that investment, right? We're not putting in the investment. We're not doing the things that we should do. And so once again, when we put in that initial investment, then we can yield a return on our marriage. And so those are the things that inspire me to really write the book, because I remember when God gave it to me, I can remember going to the gym and I was trying to get into a new exercise regimen, and I was trying to lift weights and do all of these things. And oh my God, it was so difficult. All I really wanted to do is put all my equipment back and sneak out of there and never come back, right? But from that, the Lord really began to minister to me, and God began to tell me, I looked over one time and I see this woman, and she's in her late 70s and she's pumping all these weights. And God began to show me, he said, she didn't start off like that. That was a process that she had to go through. But if you continue to go through that process, you'll become stronger. And so those some of the things that God just really inspired me to start writing a book. That if you keep on going in your relationship, if you keep pushing it, and if you keep pressing, you're going to get the desired results.
Now, I'm a little bit behind you we've been married 32 years. It'll be 33 this September. So we got married in the same time period.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we got married in 92.
Okay, and I got married in 91. Yeah, but like I said, but both people got to be willing to push. Both people, you can't have a one-sided relationship and just really think that it's going to work out. And so that's when we come back into that 100-100, not 50-50.
Right. Right. Now, do you counsel married couples or couples who are about to get married?
I do. I do. That's when I was telling you really about the Decembers. I
Mhm.
counsel saving your marriage before it starts. And Decembers also allows me to counsel people they have saving your second marriage before it starts, right? And so yeah, and so but I became a certified coach from the Center for Thriving Relationships. And so we have all types of nuggets and things like that, all kind of principles that people can really put into place to help your marriage and your relationships thrive. Yeah.
What
Okay.
is your, and I'm glad that you asked that question. And I think more people who are either thinking of getting married or maybe they're in the early stages of marriage, they need to know that every day isn't going to be easy. Every day isn't going to be a honeymoon.
Correct.
So what do you tell people who are like, I don't have to take this. This is too hard. I'm ready to walk away. What how do you counsel somebody like that who's going through those struggles?
Okay, so like one thing I learned in the school that I went to get my certification, again, we talked about that honeymoon stage, right?
Mhm.
And when a person is in that honeymoon stage, it's like you can't see the forest for the trees, right? They can
Right.
do you all of these things, and you kind of turn your head and you look the other way because we bonding and we're falling in love and we like each other. But after that honeymoon stage, it comes the power struggle stage. That's the next
Mm.
stage. And so when the relationship gets into that power struggle stage, it's like you want your way and I want my way, right? And so we're bumping heads and we're bumping heads. And the sad part of that analogy, you all, of that truth is that so many couples will stay in a power struggle stage for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years until that relationship will just die out. And so in order for them to move to the next stage of that relationship, both couples have to ask themselves, both people have to say, well, what does this marriage or what does this relationship need from me that I'm not giving to it? And how can I make it better? And so when you start focusing on one another and we both focusing on ourselves to say, what does it need from me? Because it's easy for us to point our fingers at the next person and say, well, you're not giving me this and you're not giving me that. And so when both couples come to that conclusion that I'm gonna become the best version of myself, well, that's when a relationship moves to that next stage, which is the commitment stage. We can't make a commitment until we stop power struggling, right? And so that's what I would tell that person. Hey, have you really given it your all? Have you done some self-awareness that I'm looking at me and I'm not looking at you? Because a lot of times we don't like to see ourselves, right? We don't like to be that person that look in the mirror and say, you know what, you need to change this about yourself and you need to change that about yourself. And if both people do that, well, then you'll come out of that power struggle stage and move to the next phase of your relationship.
And that's a scary thing to
Yeah.
to sit to be honest with yourself and say, I might be the problem. I'm looking at this other person and I'm pointing my finger at the other person, but there's three pointed back at me.
That's right. That's right. And once again, that self-awareness. Are you aware that you go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat? Are you aware of that? Or are you aware that
Yeah.
your tone of voice when you're talking to me, tonality, all of that comes into play, right? And so once again, when everybody just take a good look at themselves and say, you know what, Adrian, you know what, you really need to change that about yourself. And that's what I like about the course that I took, because it pulls away you focusing in on that next person and you focus in on yourself, because at the end of the day, we cannot change nobody.
Right. We cannot
We
change a
can't change nobody, but
grown
you can
person.
change yourself.
And you can barely change a child, but a grown person can change. They are what they are. And in our final minute, um, a lot of people talk about communication in marriage, but what they really should talk about is listening,
Oh,
because that is the missing element. Not just talking, you have to really listen to your spouse, your partner.
and that's another thing that I learned too, because there's such a thing that's called heart listening, right? I'm not listening at I'm listening for your heart. I'm looking beyond, I'm looking under what you're saying, right? And so when we listen with our heart, sometimes we'll stop coming to the place to where, because sometimes when we listen and when we're communicating, and we can be honest, sometimes we've been to the place to where I'm really listening to get some ammunition to come back at you. you know
Yeah.
but if we do heart listening and we look under and really get a sense and a feel of what my partner is saying, then we can communicate with one another better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Adrienne, we're at the end of our time. Can you show your book cover one more time?
Okay.
And it's called When Out Isn't an Option. So marriage should be for keeps is the subhead. Thank
Yeah.
you for being a guest on the show,
Thank you.
and thank you for counseling married couples and married
Yes.
couples to
For all
be to have the
and we
best
did put the link
relationship.
to your book. Well, we put the link to bkroyston.com, which is where your book can be found. That is in the chat. So we hope that everybody will click the link and purchase this great book, because it sounds like there's some jewels in this book. And I'm not married, but I'm in a very long-term relationship that's headed toward marriage. So I'm looking forward to making sure that I take these jewels for myself so I can bring them into my marriage when it's time.
And the book is not just for married couples. It's for those that aspire to be married. It's for those that have been married and it went wrong, and now you want that other covenant relationship. So yeah, it's not just dedicated to married couples. Yeah.
Okay, well, have a great evening, and thank you
You
for being
too.
on this.
You guys too. Thank y'all so much. Okay, it's been fun.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye bye.